Welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses, and after the positivity of the Premier Sports Cup, we are back to, well, we're not going to be too negative, Calum, I think, but maybe the first therapy session of the season after the Dons suffered a 2-0 defeat to start the season at the hands of Celtic, meaning we prop up the Premiership table. But as Yaz once sang, the only way is up. So Calum, let's try and look on the bright side.
We're going to have to, aren't we? We're going to have to look hard for some positives in the game, but I'm willing to do it. I'm not going to try and let that result, deflate my mood too much, especially with the August that we've got on our hands coming up. I'm still feeling okay so far.
Yeah, we will look back, of course, at the defeat from the weekend and kind of give our thoughts on, the team, the tactics, what we felt went wrong and where we could have maybe improved if there was any room for improvement. And we'll also look at some of the transfer talk that's kind of dominated the last couple of days. Unfortunately, no new signings to report at time of recording. Q Aberdeen announcing a new signing very shortly, I'm sure. And then take a look ahead to this weekend's first home game of the Premiership season as St Mirren travel to town to take on the Dons. And we'll look ahead to that game, what St Mirren might have in store, and what we can change from the weekend ahead of, as Calum said, a big August. We've got 5 decent league games before the next time we play one half of the Glasgow 2, and it's really important that we now build and start putting points on the board, because the ABZ guys, I think, Calum, they made a good point. They said our season won't be defined on that game against Celtic, and it's really going to start from next Saturday even, sorry.
Oh, it's already throwing us off that Sunday game. But no, I do agree. I saw people describe it as a free hit, which I do agree with to an extent. I mean, going up against the champions when, they've spent what they've spent so far this window and things like that. It was never going to be easy opening day this season, let alone on, flag days, I like calling it, when, it's packed to the brim. But, I think there was a learning experience there, which I think we can take from that. And yeah, we'll definitely, look to improve, and a good place to start with next weekend too.
Yeah, I think a learning curve for quite a few players. Obviously, a lot of debuts, Premiership debuts for the team as well. We had Hayden Coulson in at left back, starting as we kind of predicted. Actually, to be fair, the team that started the game was the starting 11 that we predicted on last week's episode. I don't think it was that hard to predict in the end. There was a few people questioning whether Johnny Hayes would be moved back to left back, and on the bus on the way down, a few people may be saying, should we have put some differences aside with David Bates and played him in there to avoid Ross McCrory dropping back to centre back? But on Hayden himself, how did you feel he got on his debut?
I certainly thought he grew into the game. I'm still not, maybe too convinced defensively, but on the ball looks very, very positive. I think he'll be a good threat down that left-hand side. But definitely, I think, as the game went on, he started getting a little bit more confident. Maybe the occasion wasn't quite getting to him quite as much, but he looked okay. He looked competent. And I think, with more games under the belt, and once he gets used to sort of who he's playing with, and likewise players get used to him, he could prove to be a good signing.
Yeah, it was one of my biggest gripes from the weekend was, he was good going forward, but he was a defender. That's not his job. His job's not to be good going forward. His job is to help keep the ball out of the net. It's not a single criticism of him, because I don't think any of the goals were directly his fault. It was just a grievance that I had on his assessment, or people's assessments of the game, that was their main takeaway, was that his best performance was going forward. Well, we need him to be defensively sound, because I've kind of mentioned that's been my thoughts on Jaden Richardson, and I know we're going to come to potential transfers, but if Shaden Morris signs, that'll be a Shaden, Hayden, and Jaden that we've got to talk about. Talk about tongue twisters. We've got enough tripping us up as is, Calum.
I know, I absolutely love it. I saw someone mention on Twitter when we were linked with Shayden Morris originally, we might have to adapt the blade in races for something. And we've got 2 Geordies in the team as well, so I'm all for that, but that would be very, very confusing.
Yeah, and on Hayden, do you think that it is maybe we are yet to see the defensive side of him? We'll maybe see that in the next 4 or 5 games coming up.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I mean, going up against Celtic, most fullbacks in the league will have a very, very tough time against them. So I don't think we can judge too much on him there. I think we will start to see what he's made of in these next few games in August. And hopefully can prove to us to be a good defender. And likewise, maybe Jaden Richardson on the opposite side, because I know your jury's definitely out on that one.
Yeah, definitely. I think that point you make, we'll really see not just what certain individuals are like, we'll really see what this team is all about in the month of August, I feel, because it's all well and good, we've both been guilty of it, maybe you more so, of getting carried away based on the Premier Sports results. With the greatest of respect to Peterhead, the 3 wins against likely League Two opposition, although maybe Dumbarton and Stirling Albion have hopes of getting out of that division this year. And then Wraith was relatively comfortable, maybe not the biggest test that we'd hoped or Jim Goodwin had hoped it would be. So things were always going to be difficult in this game against Celtic and would have given us a relative gauge of where we are. But then when you have a Celtic defender on loan and you're forced to change the spine of your team around that, again, it doesn't quite give us that reflection of where this team are, because we haven't yet been able to play our best team against similar level opposition. And I guess this Saturday when St Mirren come to town, that will give us the best indication of where we are going forward for, certainly the next few weeks still whilst the transfer window is active, because I think it's fair to say there will still be some comings and goings.
Definitely. I think it will be a much better indication, especially, given where we were and they were comparatively last season as well. But I'm very much looking forward to Liam Scales getting back in there. We saw how much of a miss it was, and not just that, but the disruption to the rest of the team, him being out as well. So I'm looking forward to him getting back in there, the team being a little bit more settled, and hopefully we can start to put some wins together. Hopefully the team remembers how to win, and they've not just forgotten that after that show on Sunday, and after they quickly learned after last season. So hopefully we can get back to winning ways, and with a more settled team as well, I'm certainly a lot more confident. I would like to pose the question though, would you have sacrificed putting David Bates in to have kept Ross McCrory in the midfield? Because looking back on it, it's something I maybe would have considered. I don't think that maybe even came into Jim Goodwin's thoughts once, but I just want to know what you think.
I don't know. I think, you played Hayden Coulson, who had 0 match minutes under his belt. David Bates would have had brief minutes from the Brecon game. I think we'd have been a lot more ragdolled in defence had David Bates been there, because the point you made about you're excited to see Liam Scales coming back into that team. I think you would counter that by saying as well, not that McCrory and Stewart did anything wrong as a centre-back pairing, because I thought both were very solid. I think the excitement around Scales getting back for you is seeing McCrory go back into that midfield. I certainly think we missed McCrory's energy in midfield. We'll come on to Dante in a minute, but I think the biggest miss out of that was probably Connor Barron, out injured just now. And I think had Connor been fit, we would have seen him go into that midfield alongside Yilva Ramadani, and we probably wouldn't be having the discussion around whether or not we would want to have seen David Bates fit in there at centre-back. I think it's just down to the fact that Jim Goodwin doesn't see David Bates playing for Aberdeen, and that's why he hasn't played. Obviously, there was the when we mentioned last week he was over in Poland for the medical. Legia Warsaw decided against signing David Bates. So, maybe the player himself doesn't want to potentially risk injury and jeopardise a move elsewhere. That could have came into it as well. I don't know. I think the result would have probably still been the same had David Bates been in at the centre back. Some people would have probably say the scoreline could have been greater, but ifs, buts and maybes now, I suppose. Yeah,
definitely. I just thought I'd pose the question because I wonder if, although David Bates would have been in that defence, which probably weakens it, then the midfield is significantly stronger with, first of all, someone who's actually match fit to start with in midfield, and we maybe don't get played through so much, and we're not so so lightweight in there. But I just thought I'd pose the question, play devil's advocate.
No, absolutely. That was the discussion that was rife in the first 2-3 rows of the bus on the way down to Shettleston, before the alcohol really kicked in. I mean, happy juice, really kicked in. So, no, I think there have been a few other people maybe having those questions, thoughts on team selection, but obviously in the midfield we had Dante, Polvara and Yilba Ramadani. What did you make of Dante's performance? Because I feel a bit sorry for him, in fact. I think some of the criticism that has been levelled at him has been slightly harsh. I don't know if you agree on that.
I do certainly feel sorry for him, but at the same time, I can absolutely understand the criticism. I personally I don't know if I really expected too much more from him. We've seen, very little of Dante Polvara. He's lacked in minutes in pre-season and getting chucked in against the best team in the league. It's probably a recipe for disaster regardless. But I do certainly feel a little bit sorry for him. And I think going into other games against 9 other teams in the league, he'll be more than adequate as a squad player. He can come in and play that role when needed. But especially away either of the 2 Glasgow sides, it's almost definitely going to be a disaster at such a young age. And probably that lack of experience really showing there in terms of first team football anyway.
Yeah, I think as well, like someone made the point about him having decent minutes under his belts, but you cannot compare playing bottom 6 football and he had a decent chunk of minutes in that last game of the season against St Mirren. But playing St Mirren in a dead rubber is not the same as going into your opening day of the season against the champions. That's just incomparable. And I think, had we known, Connor Barron's been out injured for most of pre-season, it was quite widely known, especially if Willie Miller was disclosing on the radio that he's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks, that Connor Barron was missing. So it was very much likely that Dante Polvara was going to fill this position if you're not going to then play a David Bates at centre-back like you suggested. There should have been maybe that thought to get more minutes under Dante's belt. However, I think that the game scenario, the way Celtic play, the pace, it did possibly catch him out. But I don't know what everyone else was expecting based on who he's come up against. And it's probably will have been his biggest test. He came on obviously at Ibrox last season, but that was for 2 minutes, so you can barely count that as a similar comparison either.
Yeah, no, I think it's very different him going in from the start and basically having to chase 3 of the best midfielders in the league, really. So it's a very, very tough one. I think we'll learn more about him in sort of upcoming games if he does get his chance against sort of the other 9 teams in the league, and we'll see what he's made of then. And it's important then that he uses those experience to then build up and get better, grow into that role, whatever role he will be having in the squad.
Yeah, I just felt a little bit for him, probably the easy scapegoat. But we'll kind of come on to the goals, I suppose, because we knew changing the team would make things difficult for us, would make things difficult to judge. But you still hope that we could have lasted longer than 160 seconds before we found ourselves 1-0 down. Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. In fairness, when we went 1-0 down after 3 minutes, I did think, this could be an absolute cricket score by half time, because that's often the way these things go. When you concede one, you concede a shipload. But it was very, very preventable. And unfortunately for Dante Polvara, he seemed to get a little bit smaller when he jumped somehow. He didn't get off the ground nearly enough. And it's a set-piece goal. You expect to deal with them, especially so early on. You expect them to be switched on. If that comes, post 80 minutes when they've, been behind the ball, keeping that concentration high for so long, you can maybe expect a lapse in concentration like that. But so early on, it's just, it sucks sort of all the hope out of all the fans. And far from ideal start.
Yeah, I definitely thought, here we go, when that went into back of net. And, Dante had done such a good job of tracking the run and forcing the corner, really. But there was 3 of them from the corner. I'm not sure whose man it was, And certainly, Stewart was in there, Dante was in there, and I don't know if it was Bojan
Miovski, yeah.
Was it? Yeah. So, there's three Aberdeen players in and around Stephen Welsh. And for me, that was the more frustrating thing, was that it was 3-on-1 and he still gets the touch. Nothing Kellaroos can do once Welsh does get the touch. And yeah, just the start that we didn't need. I think it was you that said last week, and it was certainly repeated a few times in the pub pre-match as well, that first 10-15 minutes is going to be huge to the way the game pans out, the confidence that we could take, or the frustration that we could maybe see coming off the stands if we could keep things tight. You just cannot afford to start games like that when you go to places like Celtic Park or Ibrox.
Absolutely, and basically the whole game plan goes out the window, because I'm sure most teams go there and it's sort of first 20 minutes, keep it tight, frustrate them, and as I said, maybe the crowd starts to turn, but that was absolutely not what happened. And I think you are right. I mean, Dante's in front of him and he doesn't maybe get off the ground enough, but there's still another two of them there and they don't make it difficult enough for Stephen Welsh at all, under no pressure. And yeah, Kellaroos, absolutely no chance.
Yeah, I liked Anthony Stewart's Instagram post on Monday, I think it was, where he said, "No losses, only lessons." Well, I'm sure there'll be lots of lessons to learn from the defending of that set piece. So it was, we did so well keeping 4 clean sheets. Again, opposition wasn't exactly testing, but remains still just only 2 league clean sheets under Jim Goodwin. Although I don't think many would have been holding out for much hope of a clean sheet in this one.
No, I mean, absolutely not. But regardless, don't hand them an easy one, an absolute layup inside 3 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And, you said, conceding so early does, I suppose, for teams when they go there, does throw that game plan out the window. Despite that early concession, how did you feel we approached the game? Were you happy with the approach? Did you think we could have done more?
I mean, I suppose so. I think I sort of, my frustrations more sort of lay with, it was Celtic winning absolutely every second ball. And then when they did win it, absolutely zipping it about. And, we created very, very little chances. And, I mean, that's usually to be expected at Parkhead. But I don't know. I think the way the goal came about, that just sort of ruined it, essentially, because we wouldn't have seen the actual game plan that they did go into that game with. I saw at times we were still very, very defensively sound. Anthony Stewart putting his body on the line, the structure looked pretty good. Even if our execution wasn't perhaps the best at times. But just really, really, really frustrating that, just the way that affected the game and changed things massively. And then that Hayes chance, which we'll come to.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a second, because I kind of tend to agree. I know Jonathan Main on Twitter, I know he tunes into this show as well. He had obviously his opinions on the way that we approached the game, and I think my views kind of echoed his. I don't know if it was just naivety on my part that hoped and expected more. Obviously, we kind of touched on that the game plan does go out the window inside 3 minutes when we concede so early, but I just felt we never laid a glove on Celtic throughout, whether it was we never got the chance to see Johnny Hayes, but outside that 10-15 minute spell towards the end of the first half, I just didn't feel we ever looked like doing anything in the game. I remember speaking to a couple of folk in the concourse at halftime. Some people very confident that we were still in the game. I don't really know if I shared that confidence, but I don't feel that in the second half we ever kind of approached the game with any sort of real confidence, or certainly if we ever really looked like getting back into the game at all. Although that could just be the copious amount of Jaeger bombs pre-match that is clouding that judgment.
Perhaps that is very, very possible. But no, I do tend to agree with that. We did, for that 10-15 minute spell you were talking about, we did actually look really, really good. And we had basically the chance in that spell. And I would have liked to have maybe seen us come out in that second half a little bit more of the same. And, maybe Jim Goodwin says, take a look at that. Take that for confidence. You can do it. You are capable. and that kind of thing, and just do more of the same. But at the same time, Celtic then probably on the flip side, Ange Postecoglou is not very happy, and then they come out and suffocate us in the second half, which is essentially what happened because we were very, very limited going forward.
Yeah, we were. Well, I suppose we'll have to speak about it. Johnny Hayes, had this been a couple of seasons ago and this should have been on Niall McGinn's foot and he'd missed a chance like that, he'd have been crucified. Former Celtic player going back to Parkhead and missing a chance like that. Johnny Hayes' bright start to the season maybe affords him a bit of leeway, but it's absolutely criminal the fact he's not even hit the target.
Absolutely. I mean, you'd be saying that in any game that it's criminal that he hasn't hit the target, and let alone at Parkhead where chances are so limited. And I said at the time, we won't get a better chance than that all game, and that is basically what proved to be true. I don't know. I'm trying to find sort of some excuses for him. The fact he's afforded so much time on the edge of the box to take a touch, how often do you get that in any game, let alone at Parkhead against the champions on the opening day of the season? And then it almost was like he had too much time because he tried to pick that spot so carefully in the bottom corner and just passes it wide. And the amount of times you've seen Johnny Hayes absolutely put his foot through the ball and belt it into the goal. He just needed to do that and maybe go the opposite side from Hart as well. But just really, really frustrating. And that was the chance that we absolutely blew it, and it has to do better. And no one else, he'll probably score against St Mirren, and then it'll all be forgotten.
Yeah, I don't even think there's has to do better. He should be doing better. And I think, it was really unselfish work from Vinny as well to cut the ball back for Johnny Hayes as well. Obviously, seeing the fact that he was afforded so much time, as you said, it is just criminal that he has not hit the target. I kind of seen a few folk saying, "Oh, you should go the other side," and I thought, "Well, I'm not gonna watch it. I can't watch it." and then I watched it back today, and I don't know if Stephen Welsh would have maybe blocked the shot if he does go the other side. But even if he's going near post, he almost tries to bend it too much, as you said. Just put your laces through it. Just fire it into that bottom corner if that's the side you're going to do. He tried to do too much with it, and it probably is a case of, as you said, too much time to think. And we speak about this every time we do a preview for Parkhead or Ibrox. If you get a chance, you've got to be clinical. We're in the game at 1-0 down. We get a glorious opportunity and we pass it up. And after that, I really don't remember, other than when Dante Polvara's header was inadvertently kind of headed back goalwards by Calum McGregor that Joe Hart had to tip over. I don't really remember Joe Hart having a serious save to make.
No, that was essentially it. I mean, it is just frustrating because you go into those games knowing you have to take those kind of chances, and then that is one of the best chances I've seen us have at all in so long. Got time to take that touch, set himself, and still nobody properly closing him down, and doesn't even force Hart to make a save. If he does do everything right and Hart pulls off on an excellent save, fair enough, but he didn't even have to. I mean, Joe Hart had one of the most relaxing evenings. I suppose it was evenings at Parkhead.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to me for being one of the biggest disappointments from our approach to the game, is that even at 1-0 down, because it was 1-0 to, what was it, nearly the 70th minute, we still, and that Dante chance didn't come until it was 2-0. So for me, the biggest frustration was that we didn't do enough to test Joe Hart, and even that Johnny Hayes chance didn't test Joe Hart either. On the second goal, again, Dante coming in for a bit of criticism for not closing down Jota. I know it's probably his weaker foot as well for Jota, but just shows the quality that not only he but Celtic possess, that even when he's shown onto his weaker foot, he can still do that. But for me, the biggest takeaway when I watched the goals back was how angry Anthony Stewart actually was at Callum Roberts, not Dante Polvara, as Aberdeen Twitter would have been. Well,
I watched the replays. I've braved it, and he goes absolutely mental.
It doesn't hold back.
He not at all, which I suppose is a good thing. It lets him know, I suppose, it's probably better that Calum Roberts knows early on that needs to do better. I don't really know what he could have done that much better.
I think, honestly, what was more annoying was that I had to rewind it 5 or 6 times to try and understand what was going on. And I think it was because when the move came about, Ramadani was picking up 2, and he points to David Turnbull, obviously indicating to Calum Roberts, go and help me out here, pick the man up. And Roberts kind of just ambles, doesn't really show that intensity to get tight. So it allows whoever had the ball on the wing to get it to David Turnbull, who just drives into the centre of the park. And then Polvara kind of gets, do I commit, do I not? Ball has to go to Jota, and then Polvara's stuck between a rock and a hard place. And again, Kelarus can't do much about. I thought actually on Kelarus, I thought he had a really good game, some really good saves. But yeah, I think good to see the captain stepping up and letting certain players know when their standards aren't there. But again, it just shows that you cannot drop your intensity at places like Parkhead, Ibrox, anywhere in general, because it just takes one moment and a team can turn it into a goal. Because, you know, I said we're still in the game at 1-0. It takes 1 second to create a chance. We saw that in the first half. But once you go 2-0, for me, that was game over. We were never coming back.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, as I said, it's good that Calum Roberts will now know nice and early on what's expected of him. I suppose we shouldn't be surprised with what happened, sort of the ambling, given the comments we received from the Notts County fans about his lack of tracking back, which is just frustrating. But still, I think on Dante Polvara, although he was sort of a little bit stuck with what to do there, I think probably has to be stronger and should probably even just foul Jota there. But once he does get by him, I mean, absolutely nothing Kelarus could have done. Not that I saw it at the time because of the massive pillar, which is brilliant. Thanks very much, Celtic, for that one. But still, regardless, a great strike, unfortunately. But I did think Kelarus did well. I thought he commanded his area quite well. His distribution was pretty good for the most part. There was one where he played a goal kick short and ended up coming back to him, and then the clearance wasn't quite the best, but he looked okay. He looked confident enough. So at least I'm a little bit happy about Kelarus now. So that's one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. We did well there, and I think most of the debutants should be happy with their performances. Certainly getting their Premiership seasons off to a decent start in difficult circumstances, albeit. I listened to Jim Goodwin's comments after the game, and it was just the standard disappointment at kind of the way we performed defensively, sloppy mistakes that did catch us out, and goes back to what I said. Anthony Stewart quoted, no loss is lessons, and there is lessons to be learned. But I don't know, I kind of took away a comment from him, and maybe I'm reading it the wrong way. That he was keen to get minutes into the legs of Calum Roberts and Duke, because obviously that's something they've not really been afforded in pre-season. Now, they both came on in the 62nd minute when the game was still finally balanced at 1-0. Now, I don't know if this was me still disappointed from the result, but I kind of read into that in a negative vibe that Jim Goodwin had almost conceded we weren't getting back into the game, and he viewed getting half an hour into these two players' legs as more important. Probably, as I said, I'm probably reading this entirely wrong. People are going to say I'm being negative, no surprises there. But that was my perception of it. Am I being too negative and reading wrongly into it?
I suppose for Jim Goodwin, these are his players he's signed. He probably has the belief that they do have the confidence to go on and make a difference. But at the same time, there are players on the bench who have had more minutes that have also, proved in the group stages that they do still have that bit of quality. See Ramirez, Watkins, that perhaps could come on and made a difference. I do think it's not the right time for them to just be given that chance to get a bit more minutes when, we've got, I suppose you could say, and it's probably going to come back to bite me, so I'm being a bit wary saying it, a slightly favourable August coming up as well, so I'm sure there will be plenty of times for them to get minutes throughout those games. But I suppose they're his players, and he does have the belief that they can still go on and make the difference, match sharp or not.
And I guess then, does that indicate what the future maybe holds for the likes of Messrs, Watkins and Ramirez? Because they're not Jim Goodwin's players. We've seen Jim Goodwin say on Sky Sports that he's not going to stand in players' ways that are maybe not in his plans or not going to get the minutes that they're expecting to get this season. Conor McLennan's still not seen many minutes, if at all. Marley Watkins, you've just named there, Christian Ramirez. There was a lot of people on the bus on the way home kind of frustrated that Christian Ramirez didn't get that run out compared to Duke, because I was going to say we've seen what he can do in pre-season, find the back of net with the right delivery. But I suppose people will also say we've also seen some of the misses that he can do in that Premier Sports Cup. Were you surprised that it was Duke over Ramirez on Sunday?
Slightly, because I sort of thought, Ramirez still had a place in the squad. I think he does still have something to offer. I mean, look, sometimes he snatches at those chances a little bit, but he's a penalty box striker. Conversely, on one hand, you could say if we do get a chance at Parkhead, maybe he's one of the players you'd want on the end of it. However, at the same time, when we're not creating chances, when he's on the park, offers very little. So that's also true. Maybe something he was looking at. Maybe Duke's more likely to create something on his own, a little bit of magic. Maybe that's what the type of thing he was maybe looking at. But I think it's a very, very, it's a curious case. And it is annoying when you're singing his name, and there's even a video of it when Celtic then went 2-0 up as well. But I don't know. I still hope there's a place in the squad for Christian Ramirez. Because I think there is still something to offer, and I think him, Duke and Miovski, all very different types of strikers, and that's what you need. You need that competition. You need some people that offer something different.
Yeah, I think as well, though, then it does kind of highlight, especially around the centre mid, maybe defensive side as well, that we are a bit short in terms of the quality that Jim Goodwin has kind of related to, getting off the bench. Would you agree on that?
Definitely. I think it's no secret that we're very short of midfield without Connor Barron being fit. Also no secret that we are in the market for another midfielder. Who that will be eventually, we don't know. But it's interesting. I think it does highlight that we do need to bring someone in there. And David Bates at centre-back is the only real cover other than McCrory, who then weakens your midfield. I think it's clear he's not trusted. I don't blame Jim Goodwin for maybe not trusting him, but something needs to be done. I know it's hard, making all these deals happen in the same window, and you're never going to get the squad exactly where you want to be in your very first transfer window, but I don't know. I would still like to see perhaps some other centre defensive cover that he does actually trust and is willing to put in there, rather than David Bates just sort of being there in case of absolute emergency.
Yeah,
with Celtic maybe being just a slight emergency.
Yeah, and I think, difficult to get deals done. For those of you that have maybe not tuned into the Stephen Gunn interview that's on Red TV, it is also available on the Aberdeen YouTube channel. So for those of you that are watching maybe on Red Tinted Glasses YouTube, remember, of course, to leave a like and a comment on what your thoughts were from the opening day of the season. And what your thoughts are ahead of the St Mirren game. But you can always head over to the Aberdeen YouTube channel and check out Stephen Gunn's interview that he did with Graham Hunter. Graham Hunter has his third in conversation interview, a really good one, a really good insight actually from Stephen Gunn into the operations behind signing players, and it's not just you see them once. I think Calum, your choice of words there on how difficult it is to get these deals done is quite apt on the back of that interview.
Thanks very much. That's really nice for you to say. Just what I needed.
Yeah. Just what you probably didn't need was you to have to state what your memorable moment of the weekend's game was. Now, remember, we said this could be something that happened pre-match, during the game. it's just something that we thought we would liven up the podcast with this season. I knew this would come back to bite us when we started this off with a trip to Parkhead. So, what was your memorable moment from this weekend's game?
Really struggling to think of anything positive within the 90 minutes in the stadium. I won't lie. So my memorable moment, and for all the wrong reasons, is that Hayes chance. I've replayed it in my head a million times. I remember distinctly saying at the time, that was the chance. Won't get anything better at Parkhead. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to select that.
Okay, well, I don't blame you for that. Mine was going to be totally irrelevant to the game, and was going to be the pre-match shots that we were partaking in Shettleston. Whatever the hell that was, that cinnamony thing you gave us in the Jaeger bombs. And also I really enjoyed your pre-match Snapchat story of whether or not Nathan would make the game as well. I suppose I should also give Kleibo a memorable mention for making the bus after not getting home till 5:30 as well. So some impressive sights on the bus first thing in the morning.
It was very, very interesting. Kleibo looking a little bit like a rock star with the sunglasses on as well, because he felt so rough. But I was very impressed with Nathan. Had to drag him out of the bed at 9:25 to get in the shower so we'd make it on time. And it was Jack Daniel's fire that we enjoyed pre-match. I asked, what's the worst thing to shot behind the bar? And that was the answer given. So, Julia Blige, I didn't think it was that bad, but I'm surprised you didn't mention a certain Messrs. Calum and Glen for your memorable moment, or maybe not so memorable moment.
Yeah, that was a flashback that I did not need on Monday when you have the bit of the fear from what happened the day before. But yeah, just told Kieran Gwenya what I thought of his loan move to Wraith Rovers and what I hope to see from him next season. What I said will remain between me and Kieran and what I sent to you on WhatsApp. But yeah, moving very swiftly on.
Oh, okay, if we must.
Yes, because poor Kieran will be mortified. But fair play to him for actually joining the Red Army in the away end. Although hopefully speaking to drunken idiots like myself won't put him off attending future games. But I do think that is still good that despite players going on loan, Calum, they do still, take time to go and follow the first team where possible, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. The most surprising thing when you told me was that he was actually there, to be honest, because I believe he's from Edinburgh, so I don't know if he even supports Aberdeen, but obviously he's come through the ranks a little bit for us. So, but certainly very, very, very nice to see that he's still taking a keen interest supporting his teammates, I suppose you could still say. Just unfortunate that he had to see you.
Yeah, I liked how you said that was the most interesting thing, was the fact that he was there, not having to deal with the likes of me. But could he be joined, well, maybe next season at Aberdeen, by Shayden Morris, the guy who was in our thumbnail over on YouTube and audio, of course, a couple of weeks ago when I think I had to ask you who it was. Has been touted on Twitter today, we're recording this on Thursday evening, as being close to signing for the Dons from Fleetwood. We spoke there about maybe needing that extra body in midfield, but do we need another winger right this second? Certainly a right-sided winger when we've just signed one from Notts County.
First of all, it's Wednesday evening, so you've lost the plot, clearly.
Yeah, honestly, I'm so confused.
Second of all, to answer your question, it is a bit of an interesting one. I thought once Calum Roberts came in, that would probably be the end of that particular rumour. Because if we were to sign Shaden Morris, that would then leave us with, in terms of players who certainly can play on the wing, you've got Bissawin, Hayes, Kennedy, Watkins, McLennan, Roberts, Morris, and Ryan Duncan. So it leaves us about 8 options out there, I suppose. Obviously, Bissawin's been playing as a 10, but right now maybe looking for a 10. So what happens there? Maybe he does go back out wide. I can't say I know too much about him, but at 20 years old, I suppose you'd like to think that they've actually seen something in him that maybe we can't see, going by some of his stat lines. I think it was 2 goals and 1 assist last season in a team that weren't very good, admittedly. So perhaps not his fault. But an interesting one. I did think it'd be put to bed after the Calum Roberts signing, but a little bit bizarre that it's still, lingering on, that rumour.
Yeah, and we were having a conversation with Cod's chat on Twitter today, just to kind of sound them out on their potential thoughts on what Shayden could bring to Aberdeen. But one that they seemed very surprised at happening, saying he's a winger that's not scared to take on his man. Albeit last season did struggle with injury, but once teams kind of worked him out, he wasn't overly effective. But again, right-footed, playing mostly on that side due to the emergence of Paddy Lane and how important he was to Fleetwood's season last season. So they haven't had the chance to see him on the left-hand side. That's not to say that's not maybe where Aberdeen envisage him.
Sorry, forgot to take my mic off mute there, so enjoyed that one at home. I suppose, the fact he's injury prone perhaps doesn't fill me with confidence, and the fact that, they've not seen him perhaps on the left-hand side as well. But interesting, it's one that they maybe didn't expect, and they mentioned the fee that's rumoured as well, and been a little bit shocked by that as well, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it was rumoured around the 300,000 mark. I think when it was reported in the press when we discussed this a couple of weeks back, and I think they would have been up. Well, they actually replied saying they would snap our hands off if that's the money we would offer them. So it kind of signaled to me that we're maybe overvaluing the player or looking at best way to kind of improve an investment. It could be, say 100,000 rising to 350. We obviously don't know the ins and outs of the deal, but certainly looking at when College Chat then put up a tweet for the attention of the Fleetwood fans, he is a player that's getting very mixed reviews. But I suppose like any player, when they come to Aberdeen, we will give them the full benefit of the doubt until we see them in the red or white of Aberdeen and make the judgment for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. One to keep an eye on for sure. Anyway, and it seemed to sort of come back out of the rumour mill out of nowhere for a while, so perhaps there is something in it. But wouldn't be Aberdeen not signing someone, with mixed reviews. We love it. We absolutely love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with Dave Cormack being back in the country for the opening game of the season, it'd be interesting to see if we do see any transfer movement over the coming week or so. Back in the country, as I said, for the opening home game of the season, as St Mirren come to town on the back of a 1-0 defeat to Liam Kelly-inspired Motherwell. Looking at the data, that one's just for you, Dave, from the game that took place between St Mirren and Motherwell, it seemed very much like a carbon copy of an Aberdeen v anybody outside of the Glasgow 2 last season. St Mirren taking 19 shots with just 6 on target versus Motherwell, who had 9 shots, 2 on target, of course, one being the match-winning penalty from Kevin Van Veen as the away side ran out 1-0 winners. So both sides going into this game on 0 points, looking for their first win of the season. Calum, you're probably saying this is a game we almost ideal opposition without wanting to get too ahead of ourselves.
I think ideal is a bit extreme, but I think it's one of the few that we'd maybe like, certainly at home anyway. Mm-hmm. Going down there, we've had our troubles sometimes. So the fact it's at home, I think it's a game that, if we are going to achieve our goals this season, that top 4 finish, or at least top 6 anyway, I hope this season, then, we need to go out and win this game. There's no if, buts, or maybes. St Mirren squad's in a decent place, but, there was also some rumours about Stephen Robertson maybe going back to Motherwell, which he then quashed. But a game we should, really be going out hell for leather to win, and hopefully we can see that attacking intent and fast, direct play that Jim Goodwin's sort of hoping to instill. So now is a good time to deliver Aberdeen, especially after that result on the opening day, because we end up with 0 points after the first 2 games of the season. Oh, it's not going to be a happy place.
No, exactly. I think, you'll have Pye and Bovril, North Bank, the rest of the Black and White Army all travelling up to Tawdry in good numbers, I'm sure, for their first away of the season, looking to put one over on their former manager. There's that ingredients there, and as you said, potential to leave us back on 0 points. It's so imperative, Callum, that not only do we get the 3 points from this game to get that winning feeling back, get that confidence back into the players, but we also see a good performance for the fans? Or is it all just about the 3 points at the end of the day?
I mean, if we win 1-0 and it's a terrible game, but regardless we get 3 points on the board, I'll still be happy, of course. But regardless, I would like to see what we can do against, Premiership opposition. As much as, the Pretty Football was excellent during the Premier Sports group stages, opposition once again has to be considered. I want to see what the players we've signed are made of against Premiership opposition, what we can do as a unit going forward, as well as defensively too. A clean sheet would be absolutely fantastic, and I think that would stand us in good stead going forward, given how few we had last season. So I would certainly like to see a fantastic performance, but come 5 o'clock on Saturday, if we've absolutely scraped a 1-0 win and we've got those first 3 points on the board, I won't be too bothered, because it's just very important that we do get those 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at St Mirren's League Cup campaign, they suffered defeats to both Arbroath and Airdrie 1-0 and 2-0 respectively, beating Cowdenbeath 2-0 and FC Edinburgh, obviously formerly Edinburgh City, last season 3-1. So a mixed bag, but ultimately they crashed out of the League Cup group stages as well. So they'll have been a bit disappointed by that, looking to come up here and kickstart their season as much as we are. But you spoke at this kind of top of the episode, we've got a favourable August coming. Both teams have kind of now, suffered opening day defeats, and this is the opportunity to kickstart their season. But from an Aberdeen perspective, Calum, we've got St Mirren at home this weekend coming, followed by another home game against Motherwell, before a trip to St Johnstone, a home game against Livingston, and another home game. This is the league I'm speaking about. It's an away trip to Ross County. These are 5 games where we'd probably be looking at 15 points.
I'm thinking it, but I'm hesitant to say it out loud.
Okay, I'll say it, and someone will clip it up and use it against me.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, that would be the case. However, we know that this is Aberdeen Football Club. We're probably going to drop points in there somewhere, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't go this month undefeated. And I wish I didn't say it, but if we're going to achieve our aims this season, and looking at the fixture schedule, that's the type of run we'll need to go on. We'll need to do it. And, with the investment as well that we've had, bringing in players too, over £1 million spent, you wouldn't expect anything less.
To be honest, I'm expecting nothing less than double figures out of the month of August, and obviously progression to the next stage of the Premier Sports Cup as well. Obviously, we've got the trip to Annan coming up towards the end of the month as well. I think, it's exactly right. If the club are realistic with the ambitions, the hopes that they have for the season, we have to be minimum 10 points. But then even in there, you're chucking in a defeat somewhere in there. I think, Jim Goodwin has spoken about, creating a fortress at Pittodrie again. We spoke last week about the changes in the warm-up, the dugouts. How much are these going to have an impact when we play St Mirren and Motherwell in the next coming weeks? We have to be building a solid foundation at home this season. So even that home games, I'm expecting 12 out of 12, because last season on the road, you spoke about the opposition we faced this weekend. We struggled there last season. If we are going to have struggles on the road again this season, it is so crucial that our home form is of that good standard. Otherwise, we could, find ourselves in a position in the league which we don't want to be speaking about.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why it's vital that we just get off to a good start. And why, although I'd love to see, a clean sheet, fantastic defensive performance, as well as some pretty football. Regardless, I'd just like to see us get through this and get those first 3 points on the board, and then we can use that as a platform to build on.
Yeah. Declan Gallagher, of course, joined St Mirren in the summer. He's one of 3 former Aberdeen players that will be returning to Pittodrie on Saturday. What kind of reception do you expect Declan to get?
Not a good one after his sort of recent comments about, him saying, "Well, don't know how I couldn't be good enough when I've played 9 times for Scotland." Have you watched anything back from last season, Declan? Have you? not great whatsoever. I don't think he covered himself in glory, but at the same time, no one really did. I can't imagine it'll be a very warm, welcome home, if you can call it that, to Declan Gallagher. I'd say similar to the reception he received when we went to Fir Park with him in the team, essentially. He's making enemies all across the league against his former clubs.
Yeah, good comparison, by the way. I like it.
Thank you.
I'm sure the Red Shed will definitely let him know how they feel when St Mirren are defending any corners at that end. Of course, we'll still kind of take a look at St Mirren just now and the threats that they might pose. Jonah Ayunga joined the Buddies following Stephen Robinson from Morecambe and has scored 4 of their 5 goals, 4 of their 5 competitive goals this season, all of course being in the League Cup. So he'll probably be their main threat going forward alongside Alex Grieve, the New Zealand international. It just does show unknown quantities to me and you, but they've got a player in there already that has been scoring goals this season. Our player that's scored goals this season is currently sitting on the bench, but hopefully with Scales back in defence, we'll see him and Anthony Stewart dealing with these threats with hopefully relative ease. Well,
yeah, I think this will be a lot more of a test than the League Cup group stages were, despite Jamie Gullen's best efforts, and we'll probably learn more about where we're going to sit throughout the rest of the league today than we will obviously against Celtic, with Scales not even in the team. So it'll be interesting. It's a player that knows where the back of the net, Ayunga. So as he proved in the Premier Sports Cup stages, and so it'll be interesting. But hopefully they can keep him quiet. Stewart, loves putting his body in the line, which we did see against Celtic, and Liam Scales certainly looked very capable against lesser opposition. So I think we'll learn a lot about them as well this weekend.
Yeah, St Mirren played a 3-5-2 at home against Motherwell. I fully expect them to change their formation this weekend, probably try and sit in and frustrate Aberdeen, similar to what we kind of saw from them last season, apart from the game which we kind of blew them away in at Pittodrie. But another player I'm interested to see, and I'm sure Alan McCarley is also interested to see when he's tuning into the game, is a player that he'll have watched regularly during his time as a Western Sydney Wanderers season ticket holder. Is St Mirren's other summer signing, Keanu Bakus, their centre midfielder who they signed. And judging by St Mirren fans' comments from the game on Saturday, was a player that they were really encouraged, who seemed to kind of drive St Mirren forward or try and link the play from midfield to attack. So maybe someone that the likes of Ross McCrory and Yilba Ramadani have got to keep a close eye on.
Yeah, I think it'll be a very, very interesting one. You sort of, regardless of what team signs and when there is a player coming from overseas, there is always a sense of intrigue about that. So it will be interesting to see how he does, and if he's anything like fellow Australian player coming from the A-League centre mid Cammy Devlin in terms of quality, then St Mirren will certainly have a player on their hands. It'll be very interesting to see how that goes. An influx of players coming in from the A-League right now. Dundee United's adding a couple, Hearts adding another one as well. Even St Mirren getting in on the fun too. So
yeah, and I think Hibs as well. And it was certainly a market that when I spoke to Alan on the podcast to the back end of last season, it was certainly a market that he said Aberdeen should be looking at. I'm not sure if Darren Mowbray's got any eye down under or not, but maybe, who knows? There's still a month just under to go in the transfer market, so who knows if we'll see someone emerge from down there. In terms of Aberdeen, Calum, do you just expect it to be the one change for this weekend in seeing Liam Scales come in for Dante Polvara?
I think so. I wouldn't be against seeing 2 of the strikers, and it would likely be Duke coming in rather than Ramirez, giving just the way things are going for number 99 just now. I wouldn't be against him coming in, and then that probably sees one of the attacking midfielders drop out, and it's not going to be Vicente Bissawin probably. So I think that would maybe be a positive change I'd quite like to see. I think quite unlikely, perhaps you would be more likely to just make the one change with McCrory back into midfield and Scales in our back four, and I don't know. I think that's probably more likely what's going to happen. But I'd certainly like us to see us play very, very positive, perhaps with Vinny in that 10 role instead of two strikers, and we should have enough about us, and hopefully we can grab a couple of goals and grab that clean sheet as well. Because to get one early in the league this season after last season would be, I think a real bit of boost of confidence for everyone involved. Jim Goodwin, me, you, the rest of the fans, and the team too. Something to build on.
Yeah, I agree totally there. And I think also in agreement with you as well that I would also like to see us go two up top, but I'm not really sure who you drop from the wide men. So I do think it will just be that one change, I guess, likely in Scales coming in for Polvara, but whether or not we want to put that marker down and go with two up top and really, stamp our own authority on the game early on and try and blow St Mirren away in the opening stages. Certainly those that will be in attendance wouldn't be against that. Unfortunately, I won't be. I'll be celebrating the marriage of Mr. and Mrs. Robertson. So good luck to both of them for their big day on Saturday. Looking forward to celebrating with you both. And then catching up with you, Calum, to discuss how the game went when we reconvene next week.
That means so much more onus on me to actually pay attention. Oh, goodness. I am excited to see what kind of pie they've got for Pie of the Month, though. So that'll keep my intrigue if the football doesn't anyway.
Well, it'd be very short-lived of the lasagna pie if they've already got rid of it.
Well, it was only meant to be Pie of the Month, but I won't be against it if the lasagna pie. Hopefully they've listened to my pleas. We'll make it a more permanent fixture. We'll never know.
Yeah, well, we do know that there are club officials that do tune in. And obviously, this Saturday does also see the official launch of the family section in the Richard Donnell stand. So for those of you that maybe have under 12s, of course, the junior DNA tickets are free for under 12s for this game. So if you are going to the family section, do let us know what your experiences were. Of course, the club putting out the new murals that are painted in the Richard Donnell stand, but Scott Gormall, the marketing director at Aberdeen, has informed me that the main stand side has remained untouched. So the groundskeeper Willie mural is still there. And of course, for maybe some of the younger fans and older, of course, the club announcing the Aberdeen sticker album being released this Saturday as well during the St Mirren game. So I'm sure there'll be some swaps and keeps coming up. We'll be getting tagged in the future.
I used to absolutely love sticker books. They were fantastic. I'm not going to make my decision on whether we're going to buy it public, however. Okay.
Yeah, well, I was just say you used to, as my microphone falls there, used to love them. I was a big fan of the one during the Euros as well. So might just do my tactic of buying it for Rory, keeping it for myself.
See, you've got a child. At least you can do that. I'm some way away yet.
Yeah. But back to the football very briefly before we wrap up, Calum, let's hope that, as the ABZ guys said, our season starts in earnest this weekend. Let's get behind the team. Let's hope we get a good performance, 3 points, and there's much more positivity, because I'm sure some people will think, me in particular, has been a bit negative on this episode. Let's hope there's lots more positivity to speak about on next week's episode. But in the meantime, thanks to everyone that has tuned in, either if you've been watching on YouTube, as we've said, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Similarly, on audio, hit that follow button, or leave us a review as well. We do love seeing your reviews, and it does help us a long way as well. So thank you very much.
Good.